Welcome back to our channel, History Enthusiasts. Today we delve deep into the fascinating and perilous world of the Ottoman Empire, exploring why surviving even a single day in this vast and powerful realm was a challenge unlike any other. From relentless labor and harsh laws to war, intrigue, and life under absolute authority, we uncover the realities that most history books barely touch. Before we journey back in time, don't forget to like this video, share it with fellow history lovers, and subscribe to our channel for more immersive stories from the past. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an exploration into the hidden corners of history. Now, let's step back in time and discover why life in the Ottoman Empire was a test of survival, endurance, and resilience. Imagine waking up in an empire that stretches across continents, an empire that has dominated history for centuries, an empire whose name evokes images of grandeur, power, and mystery. The morning air is crisp and carries with it the scent of spices from distant lands, the faint aroma of freshly baked bread from crowded bazaars, and the metallic tang of blood that has for generations seeped into the soil. The call to prayer rises from the minarets, echoing across narrow stone streets, announcing not just the beginning of a day, but the rhythm of life itself. In this empire, time is dictated by faith, by duty, and by the inexorable weight of authority. Every sound, every movement, every glance carries meaning. Every choice is constrained by a system far older than most of its inhabitants. Welcome to the Ottoman Empire. It is an empire that endured for over 600 years, expanding across 3 continents, from the fertile valleys of Anatolia to the sun-scorched sands of Arabia, from the forests of Hungary to the glittering coasts of North Africa. It is a place where empires rise and fall at the whim of sultans, viziers, generals, and merciless bureaucrats. Yet the land itself seems eternal, indifferent to the lives lived and lost upon it. Cities hum with activity, yet beneath the surface of this apparent splendor lies a society of extreme hierarchies, rigid structures, and stark realities. To truly understand life in the Ottoman Empire, one must look beyond the palaces and mosques, beyond the poetry of travelers' tales, and confront the raw, unvarnished truth. Life here is unforgiving. Most of those born within its borders would not survive even a single day if dropped into its past without preparation, without protection, without knowledge of its brutal rhythms. The streets of the empire are alive in a way that can feel almost suffocating. Merchants shout over the clamor of donkeys and horses, hawking spices, fabrics, and trinkets from distant lands. The air vibrates with the strumming of instruments and the chants of preachers mingling with the cries of children and the groans of laborers. Everywhere you look, there is movement, commerce, devotion, and toil. The Ottoman Empire thrives on activity, on the constant churn of human effort. And yet, beneath this bustling surface lies an undercurrent of tension, of fear, of power wielded without restraint. Authority is absolute. The Sultan's will is law, but it is enforced not merely by his soldiers, but by a labyrinthine network of officials, tax collectors, judges, and enforcers who ensure that the social order is maintained with relentless precision. From the highest palace tower to the lowliest mud-brick dwelling, life is dictated by hierarchy. Every person has a place, and every place is defined by obedience. Birth determines your path. Wealth and privilege are rare and fleeting, often dependent upon proximity to the powerful, and even then, survival is uncertain. The sultans themselves, seemingly untouchable and exalted, live under the shadow of betrayal. Power does not guarantee safety. It merely shifts the danger. Princes are imprisoned or executed to prevent rebellion, and even those in positions of apparent security must navigate a court rife with intrigue, jealousy, and deadly ambition. Life at the top is no guarantee of comfort or longevity. The same hands that build a palace can be the ones that destroy it, and life for the vast majority, those who toil in fields, workshops, and bazaars, is marked not by intrigue, but by struggle, endurance, and the constant threat of death from disease, famine, violence, or arbitrary punishment. The empire's beauty and power are undeniable. Its mosques soar like mountains of stone and marble, adorned with intricate mosaics and shimmering tiles that catch the sunlight. Its markets overflow with the treasures of the known world: silks from China, spices from India, gold from Africa, ceramics from Persia. Ships sail the Mediterranean and Black Sea, laden with goods that feed the empire's wealth and prestige. The Sultan's court dazzles with splendor, displaying the finest jewels, textiles, and servants, a visual testament to the might and reach of the empire. Travelers from Europe write in awe of its architecture, its organization, and its sophistication, often failing to glimpse the hidden costs, the human suffering, the harsh realities that underpin such grandeur. The Ottoman Empire is a world of contrasts: dazzling luxury and grinding poverty, divine devotion and ruthless pragmatism, cultural richness and brutal oppression. To survive a single day here, one must understand the rhythms of both life and death. Every aspect of existence is shaped by power structures and social codes that may seem alien, even barbaric, to the modern eye. The call to prayer is not merely spiritual, it is a reminder that the empire governs every aspect of life, that divine and temporal authority are intertwined, and that obedience is not optional. Streets are policed by a combination of formal authority and informal vigilance. A merchant who cheats a customer, a peasant who fails to pay taxes, or a worker who disrespects a superior can find themselves punished swiftly and without mercy. Arbitrary rules and sudden changes in policy mean that security is never guaranteed. Survival requires constant awareness, caution, and sometimes the luck of being unseen or unnoticed. Consider the structure of society itself. At the apex is the Sultan, the supreme ruler, believed to hold divine favor. Beneath him are the viziers, military commanders, bureaucrats, and religious authorities who enforce his will. The janissaries, an elite military corps, maintain order, but they are also feared for their ability to turn their loyalty into a tool of political manipulation. Merchants, artisans, and scholars occupy a middle stratum, striving for stability and recognition, yet constantly vulnerable to the whims of those above. The majority of the population are peasants, laborers, and slaves whose lives are defined by work, taxation, and service. Each person's position is largely inherited, and deviation from assigned roles can bring severe consequences. The hierarchy is not just social, but legal, religious, and economic, forming a web that binds every individual to the machinery of empire. And yet the empire is not monolithic. It encompasses a dizzying array of cultures, religions, and languages. Muslims, Christians, Jews, Armenians, Greeks, Kurds, Arabs, and countless others coexist under a system that allows limited religious and cultural autonomy, but always within strict boundaries. These communities are tolerated insofar as they obey the laws of the empire and fulfill their fiscal and social obligations. Deviate, resist, or assert independence, and punishment is swift, severe, and often public. This diversity, while remarkable, creates constant tension. Misunderstandings, prejudice, and competition can turn neighbor against neighbor, village against village, city against city. Survival is not only a matter of personal skill, but of understanding and navigating these complex human networks. Life is further complicated by the omnipresence of risk. Disease spreads rapidly, often unchecked. Plagues and fevers strike with little warning, claiming children, adults, and the elderly alike. A simple infection can become a death sentence. Childbirth is perilous. Medical knowledge is rudimentary, and superstition often guides treatment more than science. Hunger is a constant companion for the poor. Crop failure, drought, and heavy taxation can lead to starvation. Violence is ubiquitous, from petty theft to bandit raids, from military conscription to judicial execution. The threat of sudden death is always present. Even in the heart of a city surrounded by walls and guards, safety is tenuous. One misstep, one insult, one failed calculation, and your life can end. The economy of the empire itself is a reflection of these harsh realities. Peasants labor under feudal-like conditions, producing food, raw materials, and wealth that is extracted by landlords, state officials, and the elite. Artisans craft goods for trade and local consumption, yet their profits are vulnerable to taxation, regulation, and market fluctuations. Merchants navigate a labyrinth of laws, tariffs, and political favoritism, sometimes growing wealthy, sometimes losing everything overnight. The empire thrives on commerce, conquest, and tribute, yet the rewards are unevenly distributed. For the majority, life is a delicate balance between survival and servitude, opportunity and oppression. To enter the Ottoman Empire is to step into a world where survival is both art and science. It is a society of rules, rituals, and hierarchies that govern every movement. It is a civilization of immense creativity and learning, producing art, architecture, literature, and law that still inspire awe today. But it is also a civilization of terror and suffering, where a single misjudgment can erase decades of labor and life. Modern concepts of personal freedom, human rights, and individualism are largely absent. Life is collective, constrained, and disciplined. Individuality exists. Life is collective, constrained, and disciplined. Individuality exists only insofar as it serves the goals of the state, the sultan, or the community. To live here is to navigate a constant tension between self-preservation and service, between aspiration and obligation. In imagining a single day in this empire, one begins to understand the stakes. Dawn brings the first call to prayer, awakening the city. The streets fill with merchants, laborers, soldiers, and animals, each moving according to unseen rules, each performing duties that are expected, required, and enforced. Children are sent to work or schooling, depending on their social status. Women begin their daily labor in homes, markets, and fields. Men head to workshops, fields, or military service. The air is thick with the scent of cooking, sweat, and dust, mingled with the faint tints of blood from past violence, slaughtered animals, or wounded bodies. Authority is present in every corner. Guards patrol, judges listen, officials inspect, and neighbors watch each other for signs of rebellion or misbehavior. Obedience is not suggested, it is demanded. Survival depends upon attentiveness, adaptability, and sometimes the mercy of others. And yet, even with the best knowledge and preparation, survival is never guaranteed. A sudden illness, a crop failure, a misstep in judgment, a whispered accusation, or a violent raid can end life in an instant. Luck, timing, and understanding of social nuance are as critical as strength, skill, or intelligence. The Ottoman Empire is not merely a political entity. It is an ecosystem of human ambition, desire, fear, and necessity where the weak are consumed. The clever survive, and the powerful are never truly secure. To witness its grandeur is to see human achievement at its height. To live within it is to confront mortality, danger, and obligation at every moment. This is the reality that most romanticized histories overlook. Empires are remembered for their conquests, their architecture, their art, and their leaders, but they are also built upon the labor, suffering, and resilience of millions who never appear in records, who toil in anonymity, who endure hardships we can scarcely imagine. The Ottoman Empire is no different. Its mosques and palaces are monuments, not just to power, but to the human cost of maintaining it. Its markets and workshops reflect ingenuity, skill, and commerce, also the endless demands of survival. Its laws and codes, intended to preserve order, often inflict suffering and fear upon those least able to bear it. In this empire, life is a constant negotiation with forces beyond individual control: the state, nature, society, and fate itself. To understand this, one must approach history not as a series of dates and events, but as lived experience. One must imagine waking in a cramped, stone-floored home, hearing the call to prayer echo across a city that never truly sleeps. One must feel the weight of expectation, the fear of authority, the uncertainty of food, safety, and health. One must recognize that life, even in its ordinary moments, eating, working, praying, walking, sleeping, is fraught with risk and governed by rules that are often arbitrary, brutal, and inescapable. To survive in the Ottoman Empire is to constantly negotiate between desire and duty, between self-preservation and obligation, between hope and the harsh reality of mortality. And as the sun rises higher over the city, casting its light upon minarets, palaces, marketplaces, and alleys, one begins to see the full paradox of the empire. It is magnificent, vast, cultured, and sophisticated. It is a center of learning, art, and power. Yet beneath this splendor lies a world that is often merciless, unforgiving, and dangerous. To live here is to exist under constant pressure, to navigate a landscape where status, religion, obedience, and luck determine whether you flourish, survive, or perish. The empire does not reward bravery or kindness indiscriminately. It rewards alignment with its structure, adherence to its rules, and sometimes mere chance. And in this understanding, one begins to grasp why most people from the modern world dropped into this empire without preparation, knowledge, or allies, not last a single day. Life here is a relentless test of endurance, awareness, and adaptability. Every sound, every interaction, every decision carries weight. The empire's power is omnipresent, its laws, one cannot escape it, only navigate it, survive within it, and hope that the day ends in safety rather than tragedy. This is the Ottoman Empire as it truly was, a world of splendor and suffering, of opportunity and oppression, of wonder and terror. And as we explore it, we will see not only the grandeur that history remembers, but also the human realities that history often forgets. To walk its streets, to witness its markets, to live under its laws is to confront a world that is at once beautiful, terrifying, and uncompromising. It is to understand that the empire's greatness came at a human cost, that survival depended not just on skill, but on obedience, luck, and resilience, sand that most would not survive even a single day within its vast and formidable borders in the Ottoman Empire. The moment you are born, your destiny is already written, etched into the fabric of society, and dictated by forces far beyond your control. There is no blank slate, no notion of starting anew, no dream of choosing your path. The empire functions like a living machine, a system so vast, so intricate, so enduring, that the individual exists not for personal freedom, but to serve the greater gears of power, tradition, and duty. From the highest sultan to the lowliest peasant, life is defined by position, by inheritance, by circumstance, and by the unyielding rules of a society that has endured for centuries. The moment you take your first breath, your place within this machine is determined, and survival requires understanding, obedience, and an acceptance of limitations that modern humans would find suffocating. The empire is organized according to hierarchy. Every individual belongs to a specific stratum, class, a social designation that dictates your duties, privileges, and limitations. The Sultan sits at the pinnacle, absolute, his word, law, his authority, unquestionable. Below him are the viziers, administrators, military commanders, and religious authorities who execute his will. The janissaries, the elite soldiers, trained from captured youth, enforce order with both precision and ruthless efficiency. Merchants, artisans, and scholars occupy a middle space, navigating the rules of commerce, law, and religion, seeking opportunity without overstepping boundaries. And the vast majority, peasants, laborers, and slaves, live constrained lives, their movements, work, and even beliefs shaped by birth and circumstance. Each of these roles is inherited or assigned. Birth is not merely a starting point, is a life sentence, a predetermined journey in which deviation is risky. Rebellion is dangerous, and failure is often fatal. If you are born a peasant, your world is confined to the land. You will toil in the fields, planting, harvesting, carrying, and laboring in a rhythm dictated by the seasons, the landlord, and the state. Your labor produces wealth that you will not own, sustains a society that does not protect you, and fills the coffers of those above you. Education is minimal, limited to the knowledge needed to survive and fulfill your duties. The idea of upward mobility is nearly non-existent. Your life is a cycle of work and survival, repeated for generations. Hunger, disease, taxation, and arbitrary punishment are constants in this existence. Your choices are few, your safety fragile, and your autonomy restricted. Obedience is not optional, it is a survival mechanism. If you are born into an artisan family, your life is similarly constrained, though with different pressures. You inherit the craft of your parents, learning skills passed down for generations. Mastery of a craft brings recognition, stability, and modest security, but it also binds you to a single path. Innovation is tolerated only if it serves the existing economic and social structure. Rebellion in thought or action is dangerous. Your income, your status, and your social interactions are controlled by guilds, patrons, and local authorities, ensuring that your labor benefits others more than yourself. Even the pride of skill comes at a cost. Your life is not your own, and your dreams are secondary to societal expectations and economic necessity. If you are born to a family of means, or as part of the elite, your life is filled with privilege and danger in equal measure. Wealth and status offer opportunities, access to education, influential networks, and material comfort, but they also come with obligations and scrutiny. Families are entangled in politics, alliances, and rivalries. A single misstep can destroy your fortune, reputation, or life. Even within the palace, where power is concentrated, no one is entirely safe. Princes live under strict supervision, their futures contingent upon the whims of succession. Their safety threatened by brothers, rivals, and political intrigue. Power offers protection, but it is fragile, fleeting, and often illusory. For slaves, life is even more constrained. Enslavement is normalized, legally sanctioned, and socially accepted. Slaves are captured through war, purchased through trade, or taken as tribute. Their labor may range from menial household tasks to skilled service, military training, or administrative work. Some slaves gain recognition, influence, or even freedom, but most remain nameless, unprotected, and vulnerable to abuse. Enslavement defines existence, stripping individuals of autonomy and placing them entirely at the mercy of those above. Survival depends not only on diligence and skill, but on one of the most profound examples of the empire's control over individual destinies is the Devium system. Christian boys are taken from their families, sometimes forcibly, sometimes through coercion, and transported to serve the state. They are converted to Islam, trained as soldiers or administrators, and molded into loyal servants of the Sultan. Some rise to positions of immense power, leading armies, managing provinces, or influencing policy. Others die in training, in battle, or through neglect. Parents often never see their children again. The system demonstrates the empire's ability to seize lives, redirect destinies, and assert authority over generations. For the families affected, grief, fear, and helplessness are constants. For the boys, opportunity and survival are inseparable. From obedience, conformity, and endurance, women in the Ottoman Empire also experience the limitations imposed by birth and social class. Life is heavily gendered, and choices are restricted from the moment of childhood. Marriage is often arranged, determined by family alliances, economic strategy, or social standing. Public life is limited, and women's behavior is tightly regulated through societal norms and religious law. Those in elite households or harems may enjoy comfort, education, or influence, but they remain under constant supervision. Their freedom is constrained by the authority of men and the expectations of society. Common women work tirelessly in homes, markets, and fields, balancing labor, childcare, and social obligations. Autonomy is limited. Survival often depends upon compliance, cunning, and the ability to navigate the expectations imposed by others. Even within families, life is structured by hierarchy and obligation. Elders wield authority, and children are expected to obey without question. Socialization reinforces compliance, respect for authority, and awareness of one's place. Disobedience is punished often, harshly, and rebellion can bring not only personal harm, but harm to family members. Loyalty, subservience, and awareness of social norms are as crucial to survival as strength, skill, or intelligence. In this society, the individual exists in a web of obligations, expectations, and inherited roles, and stepping outside these boundaries is a dangerous act. Religion further defines life and social standing. Islam is the dominant faith, intertwined with the legal and political structure of the empire. Muslim citizens enjoy privileges under the law and protection within society. Non-Muslims, Christians, Jews, and others exist as dhimmis, tolerated but subordinate. They are required to pay additional taxes, submit to specific legal constraints, and accept social inferiority. Their survival, status, and rights are contingent upon compliance, loyalty, and adherence to the strictures imposed by the state. Even minor infractions can lead to punishment, marginalization, or violence. Life is a negotiation with authority. At every level, and understanding one's position within the religious and social hierarchy is essential for survival. Education and knowledge are also determined by birth. Children of the elite, scholars, or bureaucrats have access to formal education, religious instruction, and intellectual advancement. They learn languages, law, administration, military strategy, and theology. Children of peasants, artisans, or laborers have limited education focused on practical skills necessary for survival. Knowledge, like opportunity, is distributed unequally, reinforcing the existing hierarchy. To move beyond one's assigned role requires extraordinary skill, cunning, or luck. For most, life is predetermined. The possibility of advancement is constrained by systemic barriers, social norms, and inherited circumstances. Economic survival is inseparable from social position. Peasants must cultivate crops, maintain livestock, and meet tax obligations. Artisans must produce goods for trade and consumption, often with little profit or security. Merchants must navigate markets, tariffs, and legal systems to maintain livelihoods. Those in power extract wealth, manage resources, and enforce compliance. Even minor miscalculations, failed harvest, a delayed payment, a dispute over trade can threaten life itself. The empire's economy is robust, far-reaching, and sophisticated, but it operates at the expense of individual freedom, security, and sometimes survival. The psychological landscape of the empire is equally structured. Fear, loyalty, duty, and obedience shape thought and behavior. Individuals learn to anticipate authority, respect hierarchy, and navigate social complexities from a young age. Anxiety, caution, and awareness are necessary tools for survival. Relationships are governed not only by affection or friendship, but by status, obligation, and social expectation. Trust is earned cautiously. Betrayal, real or perceived, carries severe consequences. The empire teaches its citizens to understand their place and to act accordingly to survive by knowing the rules, anticipating danger, and aligning themselves with power structures. Even leisure, religion, and personal expression are framed within these constraints. Festivals, ceremonies, and communal gatherings reinforce hierarchy and social roles. Religious rituals underscore obedience and devotion, blending spiritual and temporal authority. Art, music, and poetry flourish, but often reflect the values, tastes, and priorities of those in power. Individual creativity and expression exist, but within boundaries that ensure conformity to societal norms and the preservation of order. Personal desires must be balanced against social expectation. Personal ambition must be tempered by the realities of position and circumstance. As a result, life in the Ottoman Empire is not merely about survival in a physical sense, but survival within a complex, interwoven social, political, and cultural structure. Every action carries weight. Every decision can have consequences far beyond immediate perception. Birth determines the parameters of existence, and, within those parameters, individuals must navigate obligations, relationships, laws, and expectations. Success, security, or even life itself depends upon understanding the rules of this intricate society and learning to move within them without drawing lethal attention. In such a world, survival is as much an intellectual and social endeavor as a physical one. The empire's reach extends beyond borders, influencing trade, law, religion, and culture across vast regions. Its bureaucracy ensures control, its military enforces power, and its religious institutions guide thought and behavior. Individuals, whether aware of it or not, live in a system designed to preserve hierarchy, maintain order, and reinforce authority. Personal ambition, rebellion, or deviation is carefully monitored, curtailed, or punished. Life is a constant negotiation with forces larger than oneself, a balance between adaptation, compliance, and resilience. And yet, even within these constraints, humanity persists. People love, dream, create, and hope. They form families, communities, and friendships. They celebrate festivals, sing songs, and honor traditions. Even in the harshest circumstances, survival brings small victories, moments of beauty, and glimpses of joy. But these moments exist within a framework that is unyielding, that shapes every choice, that reminds individuals constantly of the boundaries of their existence and the fragility of life in the Ottoman Empire. To live is to understand one's position, to anticipate challenges, to endure hardships, and to navigate a society that shapes destiny from the first breath. To imagine living a single day here is to understand how intertwined birth, status, and survival are. Every detail of life, work, law, religion, family, education, and health is mediated through the lens of hierarchy and inherited circumstance. Modern notions of freedom, individuality, and self-determination are largely absent. Life is a series of negotiations with society, authority, and circumstance. Survival is not guaranteed by strength alone, by intelligence alone, or by virtue alone. It requires awareness, obedience, adaptability, and sometimes fortune. The empire's structure is both protective and punitive, offering opportunity to a select few while imposing constraints on the majority. It is a world where birth is destiny and where deviation from assigned roles is risky, often deadly. Life in the Ottoman Empire, for the majority of its people, is an existence defined by relentless labor, scarcity, and the constant threat of misfortune. The streets of cities and villages alike are filled with the sounds of people striving to survive. From the first light of dawn, the air is alive with activity, the crowing of roosters, the shouts of merchants preparing their stalls, the clatter of carts over cobblestones, and the low hum of conversation as families ready themselves for another day of toil. Yet beneath the bustle lies a reality shaped by deprivation and obligation. The vast majority of the population are peasants' hand. Their lives are marked not by freedom, choice, or comfort, but by work, survival, and subordination. Two forces that are often indifferent to their suffering. To truly understand life in the empire, one must step into the shoes of these laborers, for their experience forms the backbone of Ottoman society, even if their names are never remembered by history. For a peasant, a day begins before sunrise. The first light barely touches the horizon and already the work must start. The fields stretch endlessly, tilled by hands that have known calluses since childhood, hands that bear the weight of centuries of tradition and labor. Every crop is planted with precision, dictated not by intuition alone, but by the cycles of nature, the advice of elders, and the ever-present pressure of taxation. A significant portion of the produce does not belong to the farmer. The land is rarely owned by those who cultivate it. It is leased, administered, or claimed as part of a system that prioritizes authority over sustenance. Failing to provide the expected yield or pay the mandated tribute can lead to severe consequences. Fields can be seized, livestock taken, homes destroyed, and families punished. A peasant's life is precarious, hanging on the twin threads of productivity and compliance. The labor itself is grueling: plowing, sowing, weeding, harvesting. These tasks occupy every hour of daylight. The tools are simple, often rudimentary, yet the demands are immense. Back-breaking work is done in the heat of summer or the cold of winter, often with minimal clothing, insufficient food, and inadequate rest. Injuries are common. A misstep, a cut from a sickle, a fall from a cart or animal can have long-term consequences. There is no compensation for injury, no medical care readily available, and no legal protection for the physically vulnerable. Survival is both physical and psychological. A peasant must endure pain silently, must continue to labor even when weak, sick, or exhausted, because the empire demands productivity above all else. Hunger is a constant companion. Food is scarce, and diets are monotonous, often consisting of bread, grains, legumes, and the occasional vegetables or dairy. Meat is a luxury reserved for festivals, the wealthy, or rare occasions. Famine is not uncommon. When crops fail due to drought, flood, pestilence, or disease, the consequences are dire. Families may go days without adequate sustenance. Children grow weak and malnourished, and survival becomes a desperate struggle. Hunger affects more than the body. It strains relationships, reduces productivity, and increases the likelihood of disease. Starvation is not always immediate. It can linger, weakening the body and leaving individuals vulnerable to illness and injury. Disease is ever present, often striking without warning. Medical knowledge is rudimentary. Hospitals are rare, and treatments are based on tradition, superstition, or limited empirical understanding. A small wound can become infected. A simple fever can turn deadly. And childbirth is one of the greatest risks a family can face. Plagues sweep through villages and towns periodically, leaving death and grief in their wake. Families may lose children, spouses, or parents without the possibility of recourse or comfort. Health and survival are largely determined by luck, awareness, and the ability to endure hardship. Taxation adds a constant layer of pressure. The state and local authorities demand tribute in the form of crops, livestock, labor, or coins. Failure to meet these obligations is met with punishment. Peasants may be beaten, imprisoned, or forced into additional labor to satisfy debts. Tax collectors patrol villages and towns, enforcing rules with a mixture of authority and intimidation. Compliance is not optional, even when circumstances make payment impossible. When harvests fail, when floods destroy fields, when sickness strikes, the demand remains. Survival, therefore, is a delicate balance between labor, management of resources, and the ever-present scrutiny of authority. Social hierarchy within the peasant community also plays a role in daily survival. Elders, village leaders, and local administrators exercise authority, mediating disputes, assigning work, and ensuring compliance with laws and social norms. While this hierarchy can provide some stability, it also enforces conformity and obedience. Disobedience, laziness, or resistance can bring swift retribution. Punishment comes not only from local authorities, but also from peers, who rely on collective labor for survival. Individual desires are subordinate to communal needs and obligations, and the freedom to act independently is minimal. Life is not just physically demanding, but socially constraining. Beyond the fields, life is filled with other forms of labor. Women manage households, tend gardens, fetch water, prepare food, care for children, and contribute to agricultural work. Their labor is continuous, unrecognized in formal records, yet essential to the survival of families and communities. Children are introduced to work at an early age, often by necessity, contributing to household chores, caring for animals, or assisting in fields. Education, when available, is practical rather than theoretical, focusing on skills needed for survival. Rather than intellectual or personal development, childhood is brief. The transition to labor and responsibility is rapid, dictated by necessity rather than choice. Markets offer another dimension of challenge. Even peasants must engage in trade to acquire tools, clothing, or goods unavailable. Locally, prices fluctuate with harvests, transportation, and imperial policy. Market interactions require negotiation, awareness of social dynamics, and an understanding of legal constraints. Failure to navigate these interactions skillfully can result in financial loss, debt, or social conflict. Survival is intertwined not only with physical labor, but with the ability to understand, manipulate, and adapt to the economic structures imposed by the empire. Conflict and violence are never far away. Banditry, raids, and local disputes threaten villages and towns regularly. Peasants must remain vigilant, protecting property, crops, and family members from theft or aggression. Military conscription also looms. Young men may be drafted into the army or recruited into elite units such as the Janissaries. While some see opportunity, others face death, injury, or permanent separation from their families. The empire demands loyalty, service, and obedience. The consequences of refusal are severe. Religious obligations also structure daily life. The call to prayer punctuates the day, reminding individuals of spiritual duties, community responsibilities, and the omnipresence of authority. Attendance at mosques, participation in rituals, and adherence to moral codes are expected. Religion intertwines with law, social hierarchy, and cultural practice, further limiting personal freedom. Deviations from prescribed norms are not merely frowned upon but can invite punishment or social ostracism. Survival requires not only labor and obedience, but conformity to spiritual, moral, and cultural expectations. Weather and geography impose additional challenges. Harsh winters, scorching summers, floods, and droughts affect crops, travel, and health. Infrastructure is limited, roads are rough, bridges are scarce, and transportation of goods is slow and perilous. Natural disasters can devastate villages, leaving families exposed to hunger, disease, and displacement. Those who live in remote or border regions face additional threats from invasion, conflict, or neglect by central authorities. Survival is contingent upon adaptability, resilience, and the ability to anticipate environmental challenges while managing labor, resources, and social obligations. The psychological burden of this life is immense. Anxiety, stress, and fear are constant companions. Every action, every decision carries potential consequences not only for the individual but for family and community. The weight of responsibility begins early and is rarely lifted. Peasants internalize awareness of authority, risk, and consequence development. Strategies for compliance, negotiation, and endurance. Even moments of joy or rest are overshadowed by the need for vigilance and preparation. Life is a continuous negotiation between effort, chance, and external pressures that cannot be controlled. Health, nutrition, and hygiene are intertwined with survival. Malnutrition, fatigue, and exposure to disease are constants. Water sources may be contaminated, food may be scarce, and medical care is limited. Traditional remedies, faith, and local knowledge provide some support, but cannot prevent illness or injury entirely. Death is an ever-present reality, and the proximity of loss shapes the rhythms, priorities, and behaviors of daily life. Children and adults alike grow up with an acute understanding of mortality, preparing mentally and physically for hardship at every stage. Despite these challenges, the peasant population sustains the empire. Their labor feeds cities, produces goods for trade, and provides resources for the elite. They build the roads, maintain the infrastructure, and participate in local administration. Their work underpins military campaigns and supports bureaucratic structures. Yet the benefits of their labor are rarely enjoyed by themselves. Their survival is often precarious, their contributions unrecognized, and their suffering largely invisible to historical accounts focused on rulers, armies, and cities. Even social interactions within villages are influenced by survival imperatives. Cooperation is essential. Communal work, shared resources, and mutual support are required to endure harsh seasons. Labor demands and social obligations. Trust is carefully calibrated. Betrayal can have severe consequences. Rivalries, gossip, and competition exist alongside cooperation, creating a dynamic social environment where alliances and awareness are critical to navigating everyday life. Peasants develop strategies to balance self-interest with communal need-seeking protection, favor, or opportunity, while minimizing risk. The empire's legal system further shapes life for peasants. Laws are enforced selectively and harshly. Local officials interpret decrees from the central authority, often blending legal principles with personal interests. Disputes over land, labor, or resources can escalate quickly, with consequences ranging from fines to corporal punishment or imprisonment. Access to justice is limited, and legal outcomes often favor those with status or wealth. Survival requires knowledge of local rules, relationships with authorities, and the ability to navigate a system where fairness is rare and power dictates outcomes. In addition, the presence of military authorities shapes everyday life. Soldiers may pass through villages, inspecting compliance, requisitioning supplies, or enforcing orders. Military campaigns require support from local populations, labor, food, or even conscription. Resistance is dangerous. Obedience is rewarded only with temporary security, and neutrality is rarely an option. Peasants live under the dual pressures of local governance and imperial oversight, navigating a system where survival depends on understanding both spheres of authority and anticipating demands that may be sudden and arbitrary. Despite these extreme pressures, human resilience persists. Families form networks of support. Traditions provide stability, and small moments of joy, a shared meal, a successful harvest, a festival, a religious celebration, all offer reprieve. Laughter, song, and storytelling endure as forms of psychological survival, providing comfort and reinforcing communal bonds. Yet even these moments are fleeting, always shadowed by labor, scarcity, disease, and the pervasive awareness of mortality. Survival is not only a physical challenge, but an emotional and mental one, demanding constant adaptation, endurance, and awareness. Every day in the life of a peasant is a test of endurance, skill, and adaptability. The empire demands labor, obedience, and productivity, yet provides minimal protection or reward. Survival is precarious, contingent on weather, health, taxation, social relationships, and chance. Life is cyclical, repetitive, and exhausting, with few opportunities for respite or personal advancement. Yet within this harsh existence, peasants navigate complex social, economic, and environmental landscapes, balancing duty, survival, and occasional hope. To imagine surviving in this environment is to confront the extreme vulnerability of human life under a powerful empire. Every task, from planting a seed to carrying water, from paying taxes to negotiating trade, carries weight. Every decision can have consequences for oneself, one's family, and one's community. Survival is a skill honed through experience, observation, and adaptation. Yet, even the most skilled and diligent may fall victim to forces beyond control. Life in the Ottoman Empire is a continuous negotiation with nature, authority, and circumstance. delicate balance between endurance, compliance, and chance. In this world, a single day is a microcosm of the broader reality. The peasant's life is an endless cycle of labor, taxation, vulnerability, and endurance. The empire thrives on the contributions of these countless individuals whose names are lost to history. Their survival is never guaranteed, yet their work sustains cities, armies, and the machinery of governance. Understanding their experience is essential to understanding the Ottoman Empire itself. Society of immense achievement and cultural sophistication built upon the relentless labor, endurance, and vulnerability of its most numerous and least protected citizens. Disease, illness, and the fragility of the human body are constants in the Ottoman Empire, ever-present shadows that shape life in ways both visible and invisible. There is no modern medicine, no antibiotics, no knowledge of germs, and no hospitals equipped with care for the common people. Healing is often left to faith, folk remedies, and the limited experience of local healers. A simple wound cut from a plow, a scratch while gathering firewood, an injury from a domestic animal can spiral into a deadly infection. Without proper care, minor injuries fester, flesh rots, pain intensifies, and what might have been survivable becomes fatal. Even seemingly healthy individuals must constantly guard against these threats, understanding instinctively that misfortune can strike in an instant and that survival is never guaranteed. Fevers and unknown illnesses sweep through villages and towns, often taking the young and elderly first. Plague, cholera, typhus, and other diseases move silently unseen until their effects devastate families. Epidemics do not respect social boundaries. Wealth may provide temporary protection, a larger home, better food, or access to rudimentary medical attention, but it cannot stop the invisible pathogens that lurk in water, soil, and crowded streets. Peasants, artisans, and the urban poor are particularly vulnerable. Their labor keeps the empire alive, yet they are also the first to fall when illness strikes. Death is an ordinary visitor, not an extraordinary tragedy. Children die with alarming regularity, often before they reach maturity, and women die in childbirth at a rate modern societies would consider catastrophic. Families experience grief not as a rare misfortune, but as an expected cycle woven into the fabric of everyday existence. Medical practices are a mix of tradition, superstition, and observation. Herbs, poultices, and religious rituals attempt to heal the sick. Sometimes these remedies provide comfort. Occasionally they work, but often they fail. Doctors and healers are rare and concentrated in urban centers, far from the majority of the population who live in rural villages. Knowledge is limited and uneven, and there is no concept of public health or systematic disease prevention. Contagion spreads unchecked. Hygiene is minimal by modern standards. Sanitation is rudimentary. Water is often contaminated, and crowded living conditions accelerate the spread of illness. A single outbreak can decimate a village, leaving behind grief, disruption, and fear that lingers long after the immediate threat has passed. Life and death in the empire are governed as much by social hierarchy as by biology. Justice, law, and punishment are distributed unequally, favoring those who are powerful, wealthy, or connected, while the majority lives under rules that are often arbitrary and brutally enforced. The Ottoman legal system is sophisticated, codified, and intertwined with religious law. Yet, it is far from equitable. Courts exist, judges preside, and laws are written, but their interpretation depends on status, wealth, and social standing. For a wealthy merchant, a crime might be mitigated by influence, bribery, or legal representation. For a peasant, artisan, or laborer, even a minor transgression can result in severe consequences: flogging, imprisonment, amputation, or execution. Survival is as dependent upon understanding social rules as it is upon physical endurance. Knowledge of hierarchy, relationships, and power can mean the difference between life and death. Religious affiliation also shapes the application of justice. Islam is the dominant faith, and Muslims enjoy certain legal advantages. They are protected under Sharia law and often receive favorable treatment in disputes, inheritance, and business dealings. Non-Muslims, Christians, Jews, and other minority groups exist as dhimmis. They are tolerated and allowed limited autonomy, but their rights are subordinate to those of Muslims. They are required to pay additional taxes, accept legal limitations, and defer in disputes. While the empire grants survival, it does so conditionally enforcing compliance and obedience. A dhimmi's life is circumscribed by law, faith, and custom, and any deviation from prescribed norms can provoke punishment. Discrimination is systemic, codified, and omnipresent, shaping the daily experiences of countless individuals across generations. Punishments in the Ottoman Empire are swift, public, and often brutal. The law is enforced not only to maintain order, but to instill fear, demonstrating the consequences of transgression. Flogging is common, a physical reminder of authority and obedience. Amputation may be ordered for theft or rebellion, leaving survivors marked both physically and socially. Execution is employed for crimes deemed especially egregious, from rebellion to murder to sedition. Public display of punishment reinforces the hierarchy of power, teaching lessons to both the guilty and the observing. Legal proceedings often favor those with influence. Testimony from a respected or wealthy individual outweighs the word of the poor, ensuring that justice is rarely impartial. Survival often depends on social cunning as much as moral conduct. Accusations can be fatal, whether true or false. A neighbor's envy, a rival's ambition, or an official's whim can result in charges of theft, heresy, or sedition. The courts often prioritize stability and authority over truth. Even when innocent, an individual may be punished if their actions threaten social harmony or challenge the power of the state or local authority. Fear of legal reprisal shapes behavior, interactions, and relationships. Individuals learn to navigate these risks early in life, internalizing caution, diplomacy, and conformity as essential survival skills. Justice extends beyond formal courts to local and informal systems. Village elders, guild leaders, and religious authorities exert influence over disputes, mediating conflicts, assigning restitution, or enforcing rules. Their judgments reflect a combination of law, custom, and personal power. Disputes over land, labor, or marriage can escalate quickly, with outcomes dependent upon relationships, persuasion, and social standing. The presence of informal authority adds complexity to survival. Understanding local power dynamics is as critical as adhering to formal law. Even minor missteps can have cascading effects, threatening livelihood, reputation, and life itself. The physical environment compounds the challenges posed by disease and legal inequality. Cities and villages alike are crowded with narrow streets, limited ventilation, and inadequate sanitation. Waste is often disposed of in rivers or streets, creating conditions ideal for the spread of illness. Water sources may be contaminated, food may spoil, and heat or cold intensifies vulnerability. Urban life brings opportunity, but also danger. Rural life may offer relative isolation, yet the lack of resources, medical knowledge, and protection creates its own perils. Survival is context-dependent, requiring constant vigilance and adaptation. The social implications of inequality and punishment are profound. Families must teach children obedience, compliance, and awareness of hierarchy from a young age. Boys and girls learn the dangers of defiance, the limits of mobility, and the consequences of crossing authority. Peasants instruct children on labor, survival, and negotiation with officials. Wealthier families educate their children in diplomacy, legal knowledge, and social strategy. Across social strata, awareness of danger, risk, and consequence shapes behavior. Fear is both a motivator and a teacher guiding choices, actions, and interactions with others. Gender shapes exposure to disease and punishment as well. Women, particularly those in households without privilege, face heightened risks. Childbirth is perilous, hygiene is limited, and labor is continuous. Punishment for perceived disobedience can be severe, including physical reprimand or social ostracism. Women must navigate authority in both the domestic and public spheres, balancing compliance, safety, and social expectation. Men, while facing dangers of labor, conscription, and social hierarchy, often wield authority within households, but remain vulnerable to external threats such as taxation, legal prosecution, or military duty. Life for all individuals is mediated by roles, obligations, and hierarchy. Even survival strategies carry risks. Negotiation with authorities may succeed at miscalculation, can provoke retaliation. Bribery or favors can provide temporary protection, but may expose individuals to future demands or exploitation. Community alliances offer safety in numbers, yet disputes, jealousy, or betrayal can undermine support. Individuals must constantly evaluate relationships, weigh risk, and anticipate consequences. Social acumen becomes as critical as physical strength or labor skill, and survival is as dependent on perception and diplomacy as on endurance and compliance. Cultural and religious practices also intersect with justice and survival. Festivals, ceremonies, and religious observances reinforce social norms, hierarchy, and obedience. Rituals are not merely spiritual, but social teaching, conformity, respect, and awareness of role. Deviating from expectations, whether through negligence, disobedience, or rebellion, can result in punishment. Religion provides comfort, structure, and guidance, yet it also enforces boundaries, limits, and social stratification. Survival depends upon understanding both spiritual and temporal rules and navigating the obligations they impose. Trade, taxation, and labor further complicate life. A peasant or artisan's income is never guaranteed. Crops may fail, goods may spoil, and market conditions may fluctuate. Taxation demands persist regardless of circumstance. Failure to comply can result in fines, labor, or corporal punishment. Economic vulnerability amplifies exposure to legal consequences. Indebtedness or scarcity increases the likelihood of conflict with authorities. Survival is a daily negotiation between resource management, labor, and social expectation, with little room for error. Education, awareness, and adaptation are central to survival. Understanding local laws, customs, and power dynamics allows individuals to anticipate danger, mitigate risk, and protect themselves and their families. Knowledge of remedies, first aid and disease prevention, can mean the difference between life and death. Awareness of social hierarchies, patronage networks, and authority figures provides opportunities for negotiation and protection. Those who fail to learn or adapt quickly face higher risks of injury, illness, or legal punishment. The psychological weight of disease, inequality, and punishment is immense. Fear, anxiety, grief, and stress shape daily life. Individuals internalize authority, anticipate danger, and learn to moderate behavior to maximize survival. Communities develop norms, rituals, and networks to provide collective protection. Yet vulnerability remains ever present. Mortality is immediate and visible, and life is measured in days, seasons, and cycles of labor, illness, and obligation. Even moments of joy are tempered by awareness of fragility, scarcity, and danger. Political authority and military presence reinforce these realities. Soldiers, tax collectors, and officials exert control over the population, ensuring compliance through both formal and informal means. Military campaigns extract resources, labor, and allegiance, often imposing further hardship upon civilians. Rebellion is suppressed swiftly, with public punishment serving as a deterrent. Survival requires constant vigilance, adaptability, and understanding of the ever-present role of authority in everyday life. Despite these challenges, human resilience persists. Individuals and communities adapt, develop strategies, and create networks of support. Families teach survival skills, heal injuries, and maintain traditions. Neighbors share resources, labor, and knowledge. Cultural practices, religious observances, and communal gatherings provide moments of reprieve, comfort, and social cohesion. Yet, even these moments exist within a framework of risk, scarcity, and potential punishment, reminding inhabitants that survival is never assured and life remains precarious. To live in the Ottoman Empire is to exist within a system where disease, legal inequality, and harsh punishment shape every aspect of daily life. Every decision, what to eat, where to work, how to interact, when to seek help, carries weight. Survival depends upon physical endurance, mental acuity, social awareness, and sometimes the luck of circumstance. The empire's grandeur, culture, and power are built upon these realities, stained by the labor, obedience, and suffering of those who face risk daily, often invisible to the historical record. In imagining a single day, one sees the omnipresence of danger, illness lurking in water, streets, and homes. Injury from labor or accident. The threat of legal punishment for perceived or real transgressions. The inequities of social status and religion, and the constant surveillance of authority. Every action is a negotiation with these forces, and every enactment carries risk. Life is continuous adaptation, anticipation, and endurance. Individuals must understand the rules, the hierarchies, and the risks to survive even one day, let alone a lifetime. Those who fail to navigate these complexities face predictable but relentless consequences. The empire's systems, medical, legal, social, economic, and religious, create a world where survival is precarious. Inequality is institutionalized, and punishment is an ever-present reality. Those born into privilege experience these forces differently than those born into labor or poverty. Yet no one is entirely immune. Wealth can protect, knowledge can guide, skill can assist, but none can eliminate vulnerability. Life is conditioned by circumstance, hierarchy, and authority and survival requires constant attention, strategy, and endurance. Life in the Ottoman Empire is defined not only by labor, taxation, disease, and the omnipresence of authority, but also by the realities of slavery and social subjugation. Slavery is not a peripheral phenomenon in this world. It is an integral part of society, economy, and even governance. It exists in many forms, from domestic servitude to military service, from skilled labor to laborious toil in fields and workshops. Individuals born into slavery or captured from distant lands are thrust into a life where autonomy is stripped away, where survival depends upon obedience, skill, and sometimes cunning. These people are the invisible engines of the empire there, labor sustaining palaces, armies, and bureaucracies. Yet their names are rarely remembered, their suffering unrecorded, and their lives often precarious. To understand the Ottoman Empire, one must look unflinchingly at the system of slavery and its profound influence on every stratum of society. Some slaves are captured during military campaigns, taken from conquered territories across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Others are sold through trade networks, transported thousands of miles from homelands they may never see again. Families are often torn apart. Parents lose children. Siblings are separated. Entire communities are destabilized. Upon arrival, slaves are divided according to skills, physical abilities, or potential for training. Some are sent to the sultan's household, groomed for service in the palace, while others toil in kitchens, workshops, or farms. The majority, however, remain at the bottom of social hierarchies, their labor extracted, their freedoms curtailed, and their survival contingent upon navigating the whims of masters, administrators, and officials. The lives of slaves are characterized by uncertainty. Conditions vary widely based on the status of their owners and the work they are assigned. Domestic slaves within elite households may enjoy relative comfort, access to food, shelter, and even education. Yet this comes at the cost of constant surveillance, rigid obedience, and the understanding that favor can be withdrawn at any moment. These individuals are constantly aware that a minor misstep, a perceived insult, or a failure to fulfill expectations can result in punishment or even death. For those in harsh labor in fields, construction, or workshop, survival is grueling. Physical exhaustion is compounded by malnutrition, exposure to the elements, and vulnerability to disease and injury. Life is measured in cycles of work, obedience, and endurance with little hope of reprieve. One of the most infamous mechanisms of state-sanctioned slavery in the Ottoman Empire is the devrim system. Under this system, Christian boys from the Balkans are taken from their families, often forcibly at an early age. Families have little choice. Resistance may be futile, and the authorities enforce the practice rigorously. The boys are transported to the heart of the empire, converted to Islam, and trained for service in the Sultan's army or administration. The transformation is both physical and psychological, designed to produce loyalty, skill, and unwavering obedience. The devrim boys are molded into janissaries, the elite military corps, renowned for discipline and effectiveness. Some achieve great power, rising to administrative or military prominence, shaping the course of the empire. Others never survive the grueling training or die in battle, leaving no trace beyond historical records of service. For the families left behind, grief, loss, and helplessness are constant companions. The devrim system illustrates the empire's ability to manipulate human lives for its own purposes, extracting loyalty and skill while simultaneously enforcing obedience. Survival for these boys requires adaptability, physical prowess, intelligence, and the ability to internalize the social and political lessons imposed upon them. Their identities are rewritten, their personal histories erased, and their existence becomes a tool for statecraft. Some may find opportunity within the system, rising above circumstances to wield influence. For most, however, life is a relentless negotiation between survival, duty, and the expectations of those who hold power over their bodies and futures. Women's roles in the Ottoman Empire are also tightly constrained. They occupy a complex and nuanced position within the social hierarchy. Life for women varies widely based on status, wealth, religion, and geography, but the general expectation is that they remain within the bounds of domesticity, family, and social norms. For most women, daily life is consumed by homes, managing children, preparing food, gathering water, and assisting with agricultural work. Their labor is essential for family survival, yet largely invisible in official records and social acknowledgement. Women are expected to navigate domestic authority, societal norms, and the demands of male relatives, balancing obedience with resourcefulness. Marriage is central to a woman's life, often arranged for strategic alliances, social mobility, or economic security. Choice is limited. Personal preference is secondary to family interest, social expectation, or economic necessity. Marriages are also a tool of social stability, linking families, ensuring obedience, and maintaining social hierarchies. Divorce, while technically permitted, carries stigma and significant risk, leaving women dependent upon their families or male relatives for protection and support. Children, particularly sons, are highly valued, while daughters contribute to alliances and labor. Women learn early to navigate domestic power structures, balancing compliance with subtle forms of influence, using intelligence, diplomacy, and negotiation to secure safety and opportunity. Elite women, particularly those within the Sultan's harem, occupy a unique and paradoxical position. The harem is often misunderstood as merely a space of leisure or indulgence. In reality, it is a complex social, political, and cultural institution. Women within the harem may wield significant influence, participating in palace politics, shaping succession and cultivating networks of power. Mothers of princes, wives of sultans, and favored concubines can exert influence far beyond the walls of their quarters, affecting decisions at the highest levels of governance. Yet this power exists within strict confines, and life in the harem is structured by hierarchy, competition, and the constant awareness of surveillance and authority. Women must navigate alliances, rivalries, and obligations with caution, understanding that a misstep can result in demotion, expulsion, or even death. The duality of women's lives, the combination of constraint and influence, the complexity of survival in the Ottoman Empire. Even those with status must negotiate authority, carefully balancing ambition with obedience, influence with compliance. For women of lower social standing, survival is equally nuanced, requiring the management of domestic labor, family obligations, social expectations, and occasional engagement with local authorities. Life is an exercise in continuous adaptation, negotiation, and awareness of risk, shaped by both gender and social hierarchy. Slavery, the Devrim system, and women's roles are all intertwined with the broader structures of the empire. They demonstrate the ways in which human lives are organized, manipulated, and exploited to sustain social order, political authority, and economic productivity. Slaves provide labor, military service, and administrative function. The Devier system transforms identity to serve the state. Women's lives, whether in humble cottages or gilded harems, are shaped by expectation, obligation, and the ever-present tension between autonomy and submission. Together, these realities reveal the human foundation upon which the empire was built, not in marble and gold alone, but in sweat, silence, sacrifice, and survival.